just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. And we're back, Coach. One of my favorite times of the week. How's everything going?
We are back, ready to sharpen the saw. Excited to be here, Coach. Hopefully adding some value. I know you're adding some value to me, so thank you very much.
Absolutely. We are slingshotting around Q2 and circling back around in the second half of the year here. Q3 has officially begun, and by the time this airs, we'll be well inside, about a month in. So I got to thinking about, what I want the second half of the year to be and how much control I have over that. Control being the operative word, but I was thinking about preparation and creating the life that we want, creating the business that we want. And I'd like to ask you what your most effective tool is in creating your future. What's your process? How do you do it? How do you think about this concept today?
Makes me think about a bit that I share with clients often, or a quote is, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So that is always my starting point as a reminder. I wish I had this, wish I had that, I hope it works out. The best way to do that, it's not surefire, of course, but it's to create the outcome that you want to create. How do I do it? Well, I think it's as always, it's a spectrum. It's a depends. Where are we looking at? Are we looking at the quarter? Are we looking at the year or the month or a lifetime? Here's a Tony Robbins quote for you. You can't plan your day if you haven't got a plan for your life. Well, how can you plan your day if you haven't got a plan for your life? Something like that. And so it's hard to know what to do right now if you don't know where you want to end up. But that's also too much to deal with on most occasions, right? So it's too big. It's like, all right, I get that from a concept perspective, good philosophy, but what does that mean for me right now? Well, what's the most important part? What do you want to get done? At the end of Q3, what would be pleasing for you? Or have you already set out a goal for end of Q4? Where right now in your life or your business have you set out the goal that's most important to you? So I'd start there. If you have one of those, what's that timeline look like? Is it the end of the year? Is it in the next year? What does that look like? And then from that, you can extrapolate back what's most important this month, or this quarter rather. If you haven't got one of those, then we've got to start the process of asking, all right, well, what do you want Q3 to be about? And then you see what you get from there. What comes up for you, Coach?
Well, I'm glad you came full circle with that last part there, because the power of questions. I've been experimenting a lot with this journaling. It's one thing to journal out thoughts and ideas. It's another thing to answer very pointed questions about that. So notice the difference in questions between something generic like what do I want versus, let me think of a good one here. If I were to be extremely happy and successful by the end of Q3, what would that mean I would have accomplished? It makes you answer the question. 3 clients, 6 clients, that would be great. Like that would be beyond my wildest efforts or dreams. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. And then keep going with that. Okay, what do I have to do to get that? I have to connect with people. Okay, what are all the ways that I could connect with people? So it's that power of questions. And once you answer question number 1, it leads to more questions. Eventually you'll get to you reverse engineering the process. So yes, I would agree with you. Step number 1 is got to kind of define a timetable here of what we're working with. I think where I would like to take this is we should just do that for one day. We'll start in the opposite direction. Instead of like having the concept for our life, let's have it for the day. And what I've been doing is, what's the most important thing I can do today? And it's funny because the most important thing usually is not some colossal big thing. Um, and I think that's the purpose of it. Is like, oh, it's not big, but I have to get this done because if I don't write that down, then it's at risk of me, kind of getting lost in the shuffle of all the other things I have to do today. So questions, identifying the time period. I'd say just like start simple and then, use that as a practice. If you do that every day, then you will be more effective. You'll have the practice for how to do that for a week or a month or a quarter or a year.
Yeah, it's nice to play with that scale because things feel so big if you if you zoom out in the time. If you just go to the day, there's only so much you can get done in the day. And I would posit that if you have no vision of what's the most important thing for you, then perhaps the most important thing you get that day would be to create the vision for where you want to go. Right? But make that small as well. Just have it be a draft, a as if version, right? Or just pick one part of your life, or one slice of one part of your life, right? Because if you say, Coach, okay, what's most important? What made me most happy and fulfilled at the end of this quarter? You're practiced in this, so your mind gives you an answer. And by the way, the power of questions, well, the quality of questions equals the quality of your life.
Mm.
The better your questions, the better your answers. And questions is what focuses the mind. In some senses, questions themselves are the answers. Once you have that, you can go anywhere. It's just like what command am I putting in to the brain to get? So what sort of outcomes I want? Well, what sort of command must I put in to get the outcome I want? And the more practiced that you are, the more precise you'll be able to get. But if you can't get an answer, that you can get more precise in the question. Right? What's going to make me most happy and fulfilled by the end of September? Loads of things. All right. Which part of my life is most likely to lead me to be the most excited about what I've accomplished? And then you can get more precise. Oh, it's my business, let's say. All right. Well, what in my business is going to make me most excited to accomplish this quarter? As you say, reverse engineer it, get more and more granular.
Yeah. I noticed your question there, excited, right? That might not be somebody else's word, but if that's what you want, then you'll reverse engineer how to get that feeling of excitement.
Yeah. And well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you think I'm always going to latch on to the emotional words, right? Because that's what you're looking for is the juice. I had a client say to me today, "Oh, I'm really." She asked me a question or gave me an observation. I gave her my thoughts. She said, "I really was happy what you said because you thought about it very logically and you talked about what's pragmatic in it to get the outcome I want to get to." She said, "I was worried that you were going to challenge me and just ask me to do it anyway." And it was about her passion project, and she's balancing that with what she needs to do that's going to pay for her passion project. And that's what she needed in the moment. But it might be as we go further that she might be not as pragmatic towards the thing that she needs to do to allow her to pay for a passion project. She might not be wanting to follow through. In that which case, we have to go the other way and then tap into the juice of the emotion of the other thing to get her to do the thing she doesn't want to do. Take the emotion to the place, right? Because emotion is what gives us the energy.
And so is that what the juice is? The juice is the emotion, some sort of excitement, some sort of motivational,
The,
desirable
yeah, the fuel is the
experience.
emotion. We do everything for emotions.
Hmm. I wrote this down when you were talking last about the questions you might ask yourself. Is there a default question if we don't ask a question? I was wondering if our default question is something like, "What am I okay with putting up with today?" Right? That's basically what it is. What am I okay being average with today? Or am I okay with being average today? It's like a very, black and white, gray, like a gray, like it doesn't feel good. But that's unless we put something else in there. And I'm sure everybody's default question is different, but that seems to be the average, the middle there.
In some places, there's work that you can do in order to establish a primary question. Have your own, what is your primary question? where can I give out the most love today?
Mm.
What do I need to do today to feel alive? And everyone's different, but something which is a, is the question that gives them the biggest bang for the buck, the question that really answers the thing that they want the most. If that's the question you can come back to as default and program that, it all goes to shit. And the first question you ask yourself is, how can I give out more love today? That's going to put you in a much better place than, why is it all going wrong for me? Why does it always happen to me?
Yeah, I think an effective tactic or strategy is to go back to the basics, the simple, and that never really changes. There's cycles of it, right? So you do something, maybe you ask yourself the same question 10 days in a row, like the love one. How can I show up with love today? How can I give love out? By day number 10, you're starting to get the hang of this. Like, you're getting good. I'm actually executing on this. I'm seeing results. And so what happens? We stop, right? We stop asking that question. It's like, I'm good. I got this. So that's the time to go back to the basics again. And maybe it's time to ask a different question. But I think as I sit here, and maybe if you're watching this out there, start with an original question. What are you forgetting that you want? How can you get back to basics? Where can you go back to that foundation? I remember a quote from previous episodes that we've recorded that, the grand is executed on the foundation of the routine. And sometimes if we have these big lofty goals, or even if we might not know what they are, but we know we want something big, we don't have the foundation laid yet. We got to get back to square one with what that looks like, build it out, build out a little infrastructure, go out wide so we can go up.
I don't remember that quote at all, but I love it. The grand is executed on the foundation of the routine. Yeah, it's like you've got to standardize before you can optimize. You can't just build your house straight on the ground. You've got to establish some foundation. Yeah, you've got to have whack that slab down first.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, why? If I'm going to build more, I want to build more slab. I want to make sure that the slab there is reinforced. And if I'm going to build some more, I'll build some more on the side before I'm building a house. And if we follow that analogy, I mean, you could be just, putting some fancy features inside your house, looking at things that are really exquisite and really high quality, high skill, and think that that's what you've made it up to. That's the level of artistry that you're at. And then suddenly you've got a water leak underground, and actually now you need to go back to the foundation. You've got to go back to shoring up what's there. And you might think, I've done this already. Why do I need to go back? But you wouldn't expect that to last forever in a house. So why should you expect to last it forever in your mindset?
Mm. Which one wears away quicker, Coach?
Well, which one gets more use? You're always in your head. You might always be in your house, but is that always going to be a place for you to live? Where do you live emotionally? I mean, you can use the rooms of a house for that as well, right? It's like you think about your house. There's been different emotions, right? You have access to them all, and you might be in all of them, but where do you hang out the most? I was thinking about this room in my house here, which is actually adjacent to my bedroom here. There's a huge wing in the house, which is pretty cool. And like, this is as you know, Coach, my office has been my office for a couple of years now. It used to be in a different place. But I think about the amount of time I spend in this room, because essentially the other side of it is where I sleep as well. I spend a lot of time in this room. I don't think that I do. It doesn't feel like it. But I probably spend 18 hours a day in this one room.
Mm.
At least 5 days a week. That's a lot. And so if you think about your rooms as being emotions, where you think that you might spend your time, because for me it feels like I spend more time in a bonus room or in a kitchen. Not true by like a long shot.
Yeah.
So like, where do you think you actually are versus what you're actually doing operationally aren't necessarily the same things. And again, that's why it's important to come back. It's like, oh, I just fixed the foundation. It's like, well, it actually, what do you mean just? It's like, I did it a couple months ago. Oh, well, now I think about it, it's probably a couple of years. 12 years ago. It's like, so when someone asks you, when did that film come out? You're like, oh, that must be 5 years old. And then you find out it's 25 years old.
Mm.
Ever had that experience?
Oh yeah, that happens more and more the older I get, for sure.
Yeah,
Songs. Uh-huh.
I started to like. What's wild is that I know it happens. It still feels like it's earlier than I thought it was, but now I know I've had so much evidence that I'm going to get it wrong. Like I call myself out on it. Like, no, it feels like it's 5 years, so it's probably 15. I'm going to go with 15.
Yeah,
The feeling hasn't changed, but I just know to override it.
that's funny.
What's an example movie for you that's older than you thought it was? Anything come to mind?
Oh my gosh. Well, I have a song. How about that?
Oh, okay. I'm not going to be as good on songs, but go on.
Well, I feel like I don't know. I don't even know why this is coming up, but the Red Hot Chili Peppers "Californication."
All right.
I feel like every time it comes on, I leave it on the radio for whatever reason. It just kind of, I vibe with it. I like it, right? So usually a song, you'll get sick of a song, right? So you turn it after a couple of years or whatever. That song was like made in 2006. Now that I say that, it's probably like 2002. I don't even remember, but I remember looking it up at some point. But it feels like it was like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It was like 20 plus years ago. Might have to look it up.
I'm going to look it up. Yeah. But that's the point. It's like you don't know, right, until you check, and that's why it's so important to come back to, like, where are we? What's important? It's 2006.
Ah, I've
Good
looked it
job.
up before I cheated. Well, I would have said like 2011, something like that. That's
Right.
crazy though. But yeah, and I'm sure there's movies and even like TV shows too. Game of Thrones is a good example. That's like 10 years old, isn't it?
I like There was a recent Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix, and so I was thinking about some of those movies. Big fan of the original Terminator movie. Next year will be 40 years old.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. But the point is, like, our minds don't work that way necessarily, right? So back to the basics and understanding where we are is really important. That's why this work never stops. There's so here's my experience for today that I'll share. You probably know that the way I do my daily journaling of sorts and boot up for the day, just notes. And I'm working for my business all day is on Evernote. And for whatever reason, I don't need to go into today. I decided to write some stuff in a journal instead.
Mm.
And I picked out one of our Provo's Coach journals from sitting over here. And I walked down to the park, just in the neighborhood here. And I like opened the front page. I was like, oh, there's some stuff written in here. I was like, oh, I remember this. Like I want to, and I turned a few more pages. Like, wow, I wrote for a few pages here. Like, huh? Turn a few more pages. Turn a whole bunch of pages. More stuff. Bunch more pages. A bunch more pages. It turns out the first entry was May of 2019, and the last entry was July of 2021. 2 years of journaling I'd put in this journal that I had no recollection of at all. I mean, when I started reading it, I was like, well, yeah, but I'd really genuinely completely forgotten about the fact that I'd done that for 2 years. And of course, my writing's so bad I couldn't read any of it anyway. But, but the point is, like, we should expect we're gonna forget, right? It's back to that frame. So
Mm.
if we're gonna create our future, we better make sure that we're clear about where we are and what it is that we want the most, because it's not going to come up and slap us in the face. We've got to get back to the basics because ultimately the foundation is always going to have a problem with it. It's going to need maintenance forever.
Mm.
Now you can stabilize it, you can add to it. So then what's the best way to do that? What's the best way to prevent it falling apart, having a problem? Right? It's continuing to add to it, continuing to expand it, continuing to reinforce it,
Mm.
continuing to do the reps. It's easier to make something better when it's not broken. When it's broken, you've got to get back to zero first before you can build on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we seem to lose some motivation until the pain is there, right? It's that pain versus
Right.
pleasure model. Yeah. So if we can remain disciplined when it's before it's broken, it's much better payoff, right? And it also feels better as well.
Certainly does.
Yeah. Interesting. I began journaling, coach. I think my first journal is dated, I might have to look this up. I think it's 2015. And I've been keeping kind of those marble journals since then. I probably have like, I don't know, 8 or 10 filled out. And I remember when I first started, like, hey, wouldn't it be cool years later to go back and read what I've written? And I do that from time to time. I'll grab one of the journals, and I do it. I journal a lot, so it takes maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4, maybe 5 months max for me to fill that out. And it's kind of cool. They're all dated, and I can pick out what I was thinking in 2021, 2022, and even before that. Yeah. And I think, to tie a bow on that, I think what that does for me is, the thoughts that I have in my head now are there because of the thoughts that I've been able to write down on paper. So it makes more room for me to expand my thought knowledge, the thoughts that I'm receiving, if I can put it that way. And I feel like it's they're more advanced, might be the word. I don't know if I could have received the thoughts that I receive now had I not wrote down what I've written down.
Well, you have to get them out somewhere so you can park them to create the space for the next ones. Like, it's not fully formed. And for me, a lot of what we do here is about that. If I can put it into words, it's not so you can understand it, it's so I can understand it. I mean, it's good that you understand it as well, I hope. And maybe people that are listening would probably be useful. But ultimately, it comes from, how often is it that we do this? Or, I mean, it could be other parts as well. I don't know what I'm going to say until I say it.
Mm.
I mean, do you experience that as well? Like, I got something, but I don't know what it is until it's out of my mouth.
Yeah, for sure. And that, to bring this full circle, that's kind of how I was thinking of starting this when I asked the first question of like prepping and creating the life that we want starts with getting some of those thoughts out of the way so that, when you're at the end of page 2 in your journal writing, you're starting to write things like, oh, I didn't even know this was there. Like, what's happening here? There's stuff coming out that's creative and it's flow. And like there's sludge there when you first start the car. So it's like you got to take it for a lap first before it starts to really click and run the way it's supposed to.
Bring it home for me, Coach. That's some good stuff.
I think just what I ended with there, just get it going. Sometimes I don't feel creative and I want to. And so what do? I write. And I write and I let it be okay if it's not creative, if I've written it before, or if it seems boring, or if it just seems very mundane. And even if it doesn't show up that day or by the end of page 2, like I was just saying, sometimes it creates the space for the next day, the next day's creativity. So that's what it is for me. I'm obsessing over this concept of being more of an influencer in my own life. And I think sometimes we forget how powerful we are, and I want to take some of that power back. I think we give it away by not being intentional about it, and I want to take that back. And one more thing, you really got me thinking about the time that we spend in the spaces that we spend. I don't like some of the things in this room that I'm in, so I'm gonna make a commitment to you that there's gonna be something. I've had the same background for tons of episodes here, so something's gonna change over the next, I don't know, give me a month or two. That's my commitment. We'll say by the end of August. Please hold me accountable. If there's not a change in my background or in this room, let me know.
Whoa! All right, we'll end on that, Coach. Some great stuff today. But I think actually, in all seriousness, man, to be an influence on our own life, I mean, maybe that would be like the ultimate failure, to not be the person that influences the things that you do and where you place your time and actions that you take. And that would be not only a failure to you, but a failure to everyone else, because only you can do the things that you can do.
Mm.
Super powerful, Coach.
Bingo. Double buys. We'll see you next week, Coach.
Yeah, those pitches moves. All right, let's get out. Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.